Hopefully it's not too loud. All right, everybody. This is the last Linux Sucks of all time. How many people have seen these Linux Sucks things I do before? One or two of you have. Cool. This one, you'll notice, is the first one with a sponsor. I think that's funny. So, let's dive into it. My name is Brian Lunduke. I do a lot of things. I'm one of the board members over on the OpenSUSE project. I'm a journalist, I think. Various other stuff. Nothing really qualifies me to do this, but there you have it. Let's hear from our sponsor.
Hey, Eric.
What's up?
Hey, Brian Lunduke's on the phone.
Who?
Brian Lunduke, you know he's got that show, Linux Sucks? We told him we would sponsor him.
Dude, tell him I'm busy. Can't you see I'm playing Zelda? Come on, Aquaman, you're mine!
That was the entire video they sent me. It's literally the whole thing. And I gotta give them props because they got the name of that bad guy in Zelda right. That's Aquamentus, if you don't know who that particular one is. So look that up on Wikipedia. This is very important information. All right. Here's a rather weird stat. This series, which I've been doing since 2009, has over 2.7 million views. At least, there's also a bunch of people that have downloaded it, reposted it to Facebook and their own channels on YouTube and whatnot, so it's gotten a whole bunch of others, but 2.7 million that I can easily measure. So I decided to compare that. Technically, yeah, me too. So that is real. That is legit. Whoa, whoa. What's going on? What's going on? There we go. Yeah. All right. So 1.1 million views for the most viewed Linux Sucks video. I believe that was the 2014 version of this that we did. The average primetime high rating slot for CNN is 0.9 million, which means, based on numbers, that more people care about Linux than politics. That's fucking math. Right there. That is absolutely legit. There is absolutely no number fudging in that. I almost made it less than that based on previous month's ratings from CNN, but they had a little bit of spike, so it got closer. But still, not even really that close. It's not all rosy though, because technically, there are some shows that perform better than this little thing we're doing right now, particularly Keeping Up with the Kardashians, which even in its current ratings slump, pulls in literally twice as many views as Linux Sucks. But what this does mean is that these are the things that America loves. So what we have is a Linux sandwich with Kardashians and politics as the bread. And I think that is kind of amazing. When I sat down a couple of months ago to think about what next to do, I actually forced myself to watch all of my Linux Sucks presentations. It's not an easy thing to do. How many of you have seen some of the first ones from like back in 2009 and such? Yeah, not as many of you. Most of you have probably seen the more recent ones, the better ones. As I was going through it, I started noticing patterns. Things that kept cropping up time and time again. And I thought, you know what? We need to go over this, because this is important, right? We need to learn from history. We need to learn what mistakes we have made with Linux in the past and not make them in the future for one goddamn time in our lives. So that's what we're going to do. And we're going to start with 2009, and we're going to go through all of these. So buckle up. This is the very first slide ever of Linux Sucks. It is a grub loader because the video out wasn't working on that laptop. This was again in 2009. I believe this was running whatever version of Ubuntu was out in 2009 because I was mostly an Ubuntu guy back then. Couldn't get it working, couldn't get anything up on the projector to save my friggin' life. had to have a guy come up on stage and basically fix it with a whole bunch of XR&R while I vamped for like 5 or 6 minutes before he got it working and we could continue onward. Interesting note, that guy who came up and helped me worked for SUSE, became one of my close friends, and eventually got me to start working for SUSE and switch away from Ubuntu, which you can see trying to load right there. Also interesting side note, and this isn't so much Linux as that hairstyle of mine. Closer look. That was a mistake. Just gonna leave that up while I take a drink. And yes, there are more slides of my hair. So as I was going through this, first thing that started popping up, over and over and over again, audio framework issues. Do you guys remember back in how many people were Linux users in 2009? Most of you, okay. Do you guys remember like the audio framework wars of 2009, 2010? I mean, there was so much stuff going on. The KDE guys were gonna have their own solution to everything. Pulse Audio was coming out and just breaking all of our shit. It was getting crazy. It was to the point where if you plugged in an audio device, you probably had to reboot them because everything was screwed up. If you had, let's say, Skype up and running, back when Skype for Linux was real and not just a web app thing, it probably took over the audio in your system and made it so YouTube videos would stop playing audio anymore. It was friggin' awful. And so in 2009, I was whining about that. Remember that we were talking about that in 2009. How many people back in 2009 bought a laptop and tried to put Linux on it? How many people, keep your hands up, keep your hands up. Keep your hands up if Wi-Fi did not fucking work. Most of you, a few of you put your hands up and didn't have it up before, like retroactively, cool. It was terrible. It was awful. There was so many problems. The third bullet there, updates that break core functionality. Do you guys remember? I know there's a bit of memory lane stuff here. Do you guys remember that update a few years ago where Ubuntu rolls out an update and all of a sudden Xorg dies? Do you guys remember this? This was probably 2010, 2009. That sucked because no one knew what was happening. You just didn't have display anymore ever. It was awful. Also, that last bullet point there, the lack of specific types of software becoming available. Less of an issue nowadays, but for years that was a problem. For years, we always had the issue when you try to convert someone to Linux, they were like, oh, well, I can't use Linux because, I don't have Photoshop, or I don't have X bit of functionality, or there's no working video editor. That continued to be a problem. Again, 2009. 2010. Brace yourself a little bit for this one. I know. Notice the slide deck, right there. Exact same words, the very next year. Same problems, same words. And here's the thing, they didn't get better. An entire year went by, and not only were there no improvements, and throughout, if you go watch the 2010 one, there was new examples of how everything sucked even more. It was so easy to do these presentations in 2010. It was ridiculous. But the hair, though. There's so many mistakes going on here. I don't know what this thing is. And it's not even a full mustache. Why didn't I shave that day? I don't think I was growing anything out. Was I making a statement? And the thing coming off my ear, I assume that's a microphone, but it looks like a rat tail growing out the back of my ear. That picture is depressing, and now it exists forever. 2010, audio problems. Did you guys remember some of these? Remember Phonon? Again, more and more and more ways to solve the exact same problem, which was get audio working in the first place. Over and over again. And none of this really helped all that much. Some things got better as we went, but this is 2010. It works pretty well in 2017. It took us over 8 years of bitching and moaning and begging before this stuff started working. How crazy is that? Who still has audio problems under Linux? Like a quarter of you? That's pretty bad. I was not expecting that many hands up, so I'm going to keep moving. Now here's the first time Xorg starts popping up in these presentations. 2010, X.org is old. Multiple monitors are problematic. Oh my goodness! New versions of Xorg. Oh yeah. That's definitely calling out that Ubuntu breakage. So it definitely happened in 2010. Configuration problems. Wireless drivers were still issues. It was not a great time, honestly. If you were a Linux user in 2010, it kind of blew chunks in a lot of ways. I mean, Linux was awesome, but it was painful. It was really painful. And this, packaging issues. Back in 2010 and 2009, we were complaining because there was too many options for packaging. It seemed like every distro wanted to create their own packaging system, right? Are there any similarities to that happening nowadays? Maybe all of you are mockingly shaking your heads. That's fantastic. And this was a problem back then, and it's a problem nowadays, because it's people duplicating effort to do the same damn thing that their friends are doing. Literally, okay, raise your hand. Who here works or works with Ubuntu? Okay, quite a few of you. Hands down, you stupid people. Arch. Give me some Arch. Whoa, dude, Arch is on the uptake. Even the guy in the back. Yeah, you go, guy in the back. Got the jogging suit on, rocking the Arch. How about OpenSUSE people? Yeah, represent my boys. That's just the thing. There's 3 groups. That's just 3. There's more. We could go through them all night. But there's 3 of them. We're all mixed together. We're all friends with each other. Half of us have worked at each other's companies, and yet each and every one of us is working on a completely different package management system that is not only different than our neighbors and our friends running on the same operating system, but in many ways different than what we had before, which makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. And again, that's 2010. Games. Here's a weird one. This slide is from 2010, and I put this up here because this has gotten better, right? In 2010, Doom 3 came out on Linux, and it had problems. It was kind of buggy, but weren't we all excited that it came out? I bought it. I'm not that big of a Doom guy, but I bought it. I bought Neverwinter Nights for Linux because it was for Linux. It had the word Linux on it, so I bought it. It was a difficult time. Now, a lot of those games from back in those days, actually, a lot of them don't even run nowadays, because a lot of these are proprietary games, and the developer never made a lot of money off of it, so they just stopped supporting it, and that kind of sucks. But we now have a lot of games. Does anyone here currently, as of right now, dual boot into Windows to play games? Oh wow, that's actually quite a few of you. All right, put your hands down. How many people used to but don't anymore? That's more, that makes me feel better. Okay, right? It's gotten a lot better, and it's really surprising how much better that's gotten, because it was terrible. It was just terrible. 2011. Have you guys known that Xorg has been around a while? It's old. It was old in 2010 and 2009. Now it's still old in 2011. I wonder if someone will get around to fixing that someday. All the same issues still happening, several years of me whining and bitching and moaning and complaining. Now, I grew hair. I don't know what to say about this picture at all, but I'm not really sure how I grew that much hair in just 1 year. Also, my stash is bitching in this. I never could grow a beard, but man, can I rock the stash. Also America. Packaging. Same slide. Literally 3 years running, I used almost the exact same slides every time for this presentation, trying to beat the distro makers over the head until they friggin' fixed the problem. Of course, nowadays they've added more packaging formats, but they kind of went the other way on that one. That's okay. That's all right. It's all right. I'm cool. I can shove it off. Does anyone here do video editing on Linux right now? It's not bad, right? You use OpenShot or KDN Live most likely. A few nods, a couple of head shakes, but yeah, mostly. Now, back in 2010, 2011, this just didn't work. I mean, people had to dual boot. They had to have a Mac or they had to run Windows in order to edit video. A lot of the Linux videos that you find online from that era were edited under Windows or Mac. In fact, all of the videos for this series up until this point were edited on either Windows or Mac because every time we tried to do simple edits on them, they crashed under every Linux video editor listed there, except for Lightworks, which never really happened. Which kind of stunk. But nowadays, we actually have a couple of decent options. I use KDN Live, it works pretty good, right? It's pretty awesome. That's awesome. It took a lot of times, but it's awesome. Again, the game thing keeps coming up over and over again, and yet now it's not so much of an issue. I'm going to jump past this one. I just included it here because it's the exact same slide and I like repeating myself. 2011, the Ubuntu Software Center came here, and I put this picture up of this slide because I said that the Ubuntu Software Center is a great start. I would like to take that back. That was a mistake. We'll get into that slightly later. Now here's a weird one. 2011, this is what the mobile space for Linux-powered mobiles looked like. Maybe Android will eventually take off. That was the thought. We didn't know if it would. At this point, we had the little T-Mobile G1 thing that had like a rollerball mouse on the side that barely functioned and you couldn't really upgrade it. And there was Mamo and Migo. Anyone remember those? Yeah, Mamo was my jam. It was basically Debian on a handheld. It was friggin' awesome. Good times. Those are dead now. 2012. What's that? More driver issues. Same exact friggin' issues in 2012. Again, this is what, the 4th year of me doing this? Now, not like me standing up on stage produces instant results. I don't just whine and then this guy goes out and is like, well, Brian whined about it, I'm gonna fix all of his friggin' bugs for him. But people besides me are complaining. We're complaining for years on end, and people were focusing on other things, or we had splits in the community, or we had forks in projects. We had a continual turmoil that just meant we never made good forward progress on a lot of these issues for a number of years. That quickly started changing. Hey, look, Xorg is old. Also, I have a scarf. I wonder if I have a better picture of me in there somewhere. But Xorg is still old. Again, same slide for 3 years running. Oh, packaging sucks in 2012. Exact same problem. There we go. I did put a picture of me in there. I parted my hair down the middle. Fancy. 2013. I decided to change the theme of my slides. This was my favorite year because this was one of the most chaotic years in modern Linux history. This was the year that Canonical said, we're going to make our own display server. This was the year that Wayland Project really kicked into high gear. So we now have 3 competing display servers instead of 1 old and crusty display server. But don't worry, the other 2 won't ship for many years. And I just put this in here because I had a really difficult time back then recommending things to people. And that's changed a little bit now, but not a lot. There were so many desktop environments that continued to fracture the marketplace. There was a time when it was GNOME or KDE. Realistically, there was 1,000 other options, and like there should be. But there was a time when GNOME or KDE was it. That was it. That was what you recommended, one or the other. You were in one camp or the other, and that was it. And then Unity and Cinnamon and GNOME 2 got forked into Mate, and stuff got crazy, and it just got ridiculous, and you didn't really know what to recommend to people anymore, which is really this slide. And we started seeing more and more of this with the new display servers, with the new desktop environments. We saw continued fragmentation. User bases were fragmenting further than they ever were in the past. I mean, this wasn't like the old days where there was a handful of distributions that were essentially the same, they were just packaged differently. This was now a time when the distributions were really going their own way. Ubuntu was really starting to break off in their own display server, their own desktop environment. They hadn't yet gotten to their own packaging, but they were obviously going that way. And it was problems all over the place, and it was just bad. Ooh, yeah, there's a good shot. There we go. That's my stash. See, I got my hand on my hip there. I was posing cool. The Ubuntu Software Center. Did anyone here, besides me, try and sell things through the Ubuntu Software Center? Did you? You did. Did you make a ton of money?
Not a ton.
You pause like that. That means no. You in the back there, fellow who I've never seen before. Did you make a ton of money in the Ubuntu Software Center? Yeah? No, he didn't. Everyone around you was shaking their head no. You really didn't. So this was back in my I'm a software developer or pretending to be days. And I made a really stupid little game called Linux Tycoon. And for whatever reason, people actually liked it, and I'm not sure why. But it sold well on my website and elsewhere. And on the Ubuntu Software Center, it was the number 10 best-selling item. It sold 23 copies. So that worked out well. Also, all of these are Linux mobile platforms that between the previous year of me ranting and this year died. All of them died. Now, during this year, the Canonical people were like, hey, let's make a mobile system. So Ubuntu Touch makes a first appearance. The KDE folks were like, hey, let's get into this too with Plasma Mare. Tizen was a glimmer in someone's eye. There was possibilities, but we were just littered with the corpses of mobile Linux platforms just everywhere. It was depressing as hell. 2014. Around this time, I started swearing a lot more. But seriously, how many people are using a Linux distribution that still is using Xorg? Uh-huh. Put your hands down. Mir? Oh no? No Mir? Is Mir not shipping and working great right now? Oh, that's weird. I did not predict that. How about Wayland? Fedora people, put your hands up. Okay, Fedora people, this is the one and only time in human history that you get to gloat. Enjoy. Oh yeah, applaud them. They shipped something. This is rad. This is very rad. I mean, we've all been pinning our hopes to having a new display server, right? Well, them shipping it and being our guinea pigs is really going to pay off a lot for the rest of us, especially the Ubuntu people when Mir doesn't work out. This slide in 2014 was very apt. 3 years later, I declare it more so. This slide is directed entirely at Canonical for the not invented here syndrome. I love you guys. I really do. Raise your hand if you work for Canonical or work in Ubuntu again. Just because I want to look at you. Raise your hands. Not sheepish. Here's the thing. I have a lot of friends at Canonical, a lot of friends in the Ubuntu community. You guys do amazing work. However, the not invented here shit needs to stop. Unity, that's one thing. Mir, all right, it's feeling like you're pushing it. No, really? You're getting snappy on me? I'm not buying it anymore. There comes a point where working with others is probably a good thing. I'm going to look at one person in a second, and I would like everyone else to raise your hand if you would agree with this statement. Communities are a good thing. Yeah? John O'Bacon, king of communities, says yes. Communities are people working together. I think that's an okay way to describe it. They're hanging out together. They're working on each other's projects. Not invented here stuff needs to go away. In fact, I would propose that we stop using the phrase NIH or not invented here and just call it canonically. There's more to come, but I want to take a second and talk about what we've been thinking about so far. Year after year, month after month, it's been mostly the same issues. However, most of those problems have gone away. Most of those pain points have gone away. This is not like past years of Linux sucks, where I'm going to tell you all the crappy things and then do a bait and switch and say, but they're really great. I'm not going to do that, because those crappy things that I talked about, still crappy. Totally still crappy. Xorg is still old. Package management, still totally a problem. But it appears that at least in some areas, we've kind of started learning our lessons. We've started learning from history. And that's kind of encouraging. It's nice to see. People who used to dual boot systems but tinkered with Linux are now staying on Linux. I can now do all 100% of my work and my play on Linux computers. 100%. There is never a time that I have to boot into another system. Ever. That wasn't always the case. And that's kind of amazing. With that in mind, a couple days ago I thought I would put out a little tweet and ask people to tell me their horror stories on Linux. And I got some pretty fun ones back, and I thought I'd share them. So I asked them to tweet it with that hashtag, and I'll share them. But I wanted to first share my favorite headline from the last year on the Linux side of things. Does anyone remember this? The backspace bug? Hit backspace 28 times, bypass grub, and boom, Bob's your uncle, you're in. That is the easiest way I've ever heard of to hack into a computer. Now, to everyone's benefit, this affected like a dozen distros. Like there was no one like distro that was really impacted more than another, really. But oh my God, it was fantastic. Like it was immediately paranoid making. Everyone fixed it really quickly. I don't think any distros left it unpatched, correct me if I'm wrong, for more than like a day. This was bad enough, they had to fix that fast. But wow, that's a bad one. If Windows had this, we would never let them forget it. So we need to not remind our Windows friends that this happened. This one made me giggle. Sir Squid, getting my girlfriend to dual boot, having to swap the GPU and monitor just to install because of NVIDIA drivers. Still a problem. Binary drivers are still a problem today, and that sucks so much. I just think it's funny because I've kind of been there. And then a theme started occurring of people running a command, one directory too high, and recursively that they should not have run. This happened a lot. chmod-r*, one directory higher than I intended, at least I had good backups. And then this happened. Same, without the good backups. Yeah, we're just reading tweets for a little bit. Do you guys remember last year, the CEO from Red Hat, Jim Whitehurst, did a little video for this, where he literally basically did that exact same thing, except with disk utility. He accidentally wiped out his whole system. Like he selected a system drive, and it's like, oh, you know, root password? It's like, all right, root password, boom, gone. Totally hosed his own system. The guy that runs the biggest Linux company in the world did that. There's no hope for any of us. This next one, I didn't even know was possible. Accidentally uninstalling sudo. Has anyone here ever done that? You've done that? That's possible to do? Like, I looked it up, I'm like, okay, you know what? I think that's possible to do, but I'm not gonna try it. Like, I just didn't want to try it. Someone replied to this guy and was like, oh, that's easy to fix. Just do sudo apt install sudo. 2 a.m., tired and freaky. I assume that's what AF means. accidentally ran sudo DB. Basically, he pointed dev null to SDB1 when it should have been SDC1. Rest in peace, Debian installer. There's so many of these on very social networks of people just wiping out their drives so easily and quickly without warning. It is so terribly sad. How many people have done that? I'm just really curious. That's a lot of you. Stuart Langridge, formerly of Canonical. You've done this. Yes, he has. My God. Oh, Peter Blackwell. This one made me laugh a lot. My wife's Ubuntu PC stopped booting because of dodgy NVIDIA driver on the day her accounts were due. Hashtag tears. Hashtag blamed. So I'm trying to remember when I first started getting my wife to switch over to Linux. But I had a hashtag blamed moment myself. And those are not terribly fun. My wife is a software developer. Just the same. Those are not good moments, especially in the olden days. Back in 2009, 2010, 6, 7, 8 years ago, you try and get some random version of Linux running on, your mom's computer or something, you are literally going to be in tech support hell for days. It is awful. It is absolutely awful. All right. Well, done with the tweets. Those amuse me like a ton. All right, back to the history thing. So we got to learn from our past, right? And there's a reason that I need to stop this, because this is the last Linux Sucks. I can't do these anymore, because the reality is half of the content is just repeats. At this point, we've got a couple of flaws, but everything else is kind of working like gangbusters. How many people watched this last year? Last year, you'll notice I got rid of all those old slides. What did I do? I spent like an hour talking about systemd and baked potatoes. Because I didn't want to talk about the old stuff anymore. I didn't want to repeat that Xorg is old. How boring is that? Done that literally since 2009. There comes a point where either our display servers are fucking working, or we just got to move on and just be done with it, right? So you got to move on. At this point, this presentation, all of those slides from all the past years, kind of catalogs all of the things that are still not working right. We need to fix all of those things. But here's the thing. Sometimes we need to learn from history. Sometimes we need to look at the things we've done wrong and not repeat them. But sometimes we just need to say the hell with it and keep on going forward no matter what. Sometimes Canonical, in all of their canonically wisdom, just need to push forward with Mir and hope to God it ships and is better than Wayland, right? Maybe it will be. Maybe it will be. And if they do, I'm going to use it. If snappy packages are way, way more useful than any other packaging and container formats on the planet, I'm going to use it. Are they and a bunch of other groups forking and creating their own things and acting canonically? Yes. Yes, they are. And I will continue to make fun of them in private, but not in these presentations. Because there's just a point where it gets ridiculous. But again, sometimes you just got to move on because it's worth moving on. Before I completely wrap this up, I would like to say thank you to not just Scale, but Linux Fest Northwest, the two conferences that allowed me to come and yell about the thing which they have a conference entirely for. Many, many years in a row, because that's kind of rad. That shows a lot of guts. I know they know I'm a Linuxy guy. I know they know I'm in the end, this is all going to be pro-Linuxy, but just the same, according to the YouTube comments, not everyone knows that. You guys read the YouTube comments for some of the Linux Sucks videos. They are hilarious. They're absolutely fantastic. Do not respond. Don't give them troll food. But they're angry. They're angry bastards, and they want me to die. But just the same, it does take a lot of guts. Also, Pogo Linux sponsored this. A company who sells computers preloaded with Linux and has done so for years, sponsored as one of their big advertising mechanisms a thing that says their core product sucks. That says something kind of critical. It says that we, as a community, as a target demographic, and as a movement and a project are comfortable enough and confident enough in what we've built that we can make fun of ourselves, that we can criticize ourselves openly with some ridiculous guy with horrible hairdos on stage. And that's kind of cool. That's cool that a company would not just look at that, but they'd say, you know what? Yeah, we want to help make that happen. So anyway, Pogo Linux, I first encountered them, just as a side note, the year I did my first Linux Sucks presentation. They had a booth at Linux Fest Northwest, and they were sitting there with like a 1U server or something like that. And I didn't really know about them before. But so it kind of all ties together. It kind of all goes back to the beginning. Anyway, big thanks to Pogo Linux for doing that. Thank you to Scale. This is the very last ever Linux Sucks. I love you guys. Now stay around. There's going to be more stuff to follow. But we're all done. We're good. Done. Done.